I saw my parents' will, but I did not find myself there. Instead, all the property was transferred to my sister who never cared about our parents. Unlike me, their explanation impressed me. I found my parents' will on their bedside table. It listed everything they owned, bank accounts, the house, valuables. It was all left to my sister. My name was not mentioned. For years, I took care of them. I handled their appointments, maintained the house, and paid bills when needed. My sister left home years ago and never looked back. When I asked her to help, she refused and said they were my responsibility. Despite this, my parents always spoke fondly of her. They never criticized her absence. They still called her their sweet daughter, even when she ignored them. I asked them why I was not in the will. They said they loved my sister more. They believed she needed their help, and I did not. I put the papers down and left the room. Their choice was clear. My sister left home as soon as she could. She never looked back. She built her life elsewhere, far from our parents, far from me. She had no interest in family gatherings, no concern for their well-being. When our parents' health started to decline, I was the one who stepped in. I took my father to the hospital when he could no longer drive. I managed the house when my mother struggled to move around. I handled their bills, made sure they had food, and kept things running. I called my sister many times, asking for help. She never changed her response. She said I stayed, so they were my problem. She was busy with her life, and she had no reason to come back. She did not care. Our parents never blamed her. They never asked her why she abandoned them. They made excuses for her, saying she was busy, that she had things to do, that she would visit when she could. But she never did. Even when she ignored them, they still adored her. They still talked about her as if she was the perfect daughter. They never spoke about me that way. I was the one who was there every day, the one who took care of them, but they only talked about how much they missed her. They never said they were proud of me. They never thanked me for staying. They never showed any disappointment in her absence. I convinced myself it did not matter. I told myself I was doing what was right. But after reading the will, I saw the truth. They had always chosen her. She abandoned them. They abandoned me. My parents never mistreated me. They just acted like I wasn't there. When I was a child, they focused on my sister. They bought her the best clothes, gave her the best toys, and spent hours listening to her talk about things that didn't matter. When I spoke, they barely responded. When I did well in school, they nodded and moved on. When I was sick, they left medicine on the table and assumed I would handle it myself. If my sister needed something, they stopped everything to help her. If I needed something, they told me to figure it out. If she made a mistake, they reassured her. If I made a mistake, they ignored me. There was no punishment, no scolding, just silence, like it wasn't even worth acknowledging. At dinner, they asked my sister about her day. If I answered, they would listen for a second, then change the subject back to her. If she left the table early, they smiled. If I did the same, they didn't notice. When we were teenagers, it became clear. My sister could break curfew, skip school, and spend money recklessly. They didn't react. If I asked them about it, they acted like they didn't hear me. If I came home late, they didn't say anything. If I followed the rules, they didn't say anything. By the time I was an adult, I stopped expecting anything from them. They never asked how I was doing. They never showed interest in my life. They talked about my sister constantly, even when she was gone. They wondered what she was doing, if she was happy, if she would visit soon. They never asked those things about me. When they got older and needed help, they didn't ask me directly. They just let things fall apart, expecting me to step in. I did. I handled their appointments, took care of their home, made sure they had everything they needed. They never thanked me. They never even acknowledged it. I called my sister and asked her to help. She refused, saying it wasn't her problem. When I told my parents, they didn't react. They didn't look upset or disappointed. They just moved on, like I hadn't spoken. For years, I convinced myself it didn't matter. I told myself I was doing the right thing. But reading the will, I saw the truth. I had been invisible to them my entire life. My sister left home as soon as she could. She did not call, she did not visit, and she did not ask about our parents. If she needed something, she would contact them. But once she got what she wanted, she disappeared again. She missed birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries. When my mother was in the hospital, she did not come. When our father could no longer drive, she did not offer help. She had no interest in them, and she made no effort to hide it. I was the only one who cared for them. I handled their appointments, made sure they had food, and took care of the house. I balanced my own life with their needs, giving up time, money, and energy to keep things running. I did not expect thanks, but I assumed they would at least recognize what I was doing. They never did. They never talked about how I was there for them. They never acknowledged the work I put in. They never seemed to notice if I was tired or struggling, but they always talked about my sister. They wondered if she was happy, if she was successful, if she would visit. They spoke about her with admiration, even though she had done nothing for them in years. I asked my sister to help many times. I explained how difficult it was, how I could not handle everything alone. She told me it was not her problem. She said that since I chose to stay, they were my responsibility. She had her own life, and she was not going to ruin it by coming back for them. I told my parents what she said. They did not react. They did not look disappointed or upset. They just accepted it. Even after years of neglect, they still loved her. They still saw her as their daughter, as their priority, as the person who mattered. I was just the one who took care of things my sister had left years ago and never looked back. She moved to another city, built her life, and acted like our family did not exist. She did not call unless she needed something, and when she got what she wanted, she disappeared again. She did not come home for holidays, did not ask about our parents, and did not acknowledge that they were growing older and struggling. When my mother started having trouble walking, I adjusted my work schedule to help her. When my father's memory started to fail, I managed his medications and appointments. They never asked me to do it. They never thanked me for doing it. They never even acknowledged that it was work. It was as if they assumed things would take care of themselves. I did not expect recognition, but I assumed my efforts mattered. I assumed that, at the very least, my parents understood that I was the one keeping everything together. But they did not seem to notice. They never asked if I was tired. They never checked if I needed help. They never once suggested that my sister should share the burden. They spoke about her with warmth, talked about how much they missed her, wondered aloud when she would visit. They never seemed to miss me, even though I was standing right in front of them. When I called my sister and told her that our parents needed help, she dismissed me immediately. She said she had her own life and could not drop everything to deal with problems that were not hers. She reminded me that I was the one who had stayed, so they were my responsibility. She made it clear that she would not be coming back. I told my parents what she had said. They did not react. They did not seem hurt. They did not mention it again. A year passed, then another. Their health got worse, but their feelings for her never changed. She stopped answering my calls entirely, but they still spoke about her as if she were a constant presence in their lives. They talked about how proud they were of her, how much they admired the life she had built. They never said those things about me. I started to wonder what would happen if I left. If I moved away and stopped answering their calls, if I let them struggle the way my sister had, if I forced them to rely on someone else, would they suddenly realize what I had been doing for them? Would they finally acknowledge me? But I knew the answer. They would not. They would talk about me the way they talked about my sister. They would assume I was busy, assume I had important things to do, assume I was living my life. But they would never wonder why I had left. They would never ask what had pushed me away. I kept taking care of them. Not because they deserved it, not because they appreciated it, but because I could not bring myself to abandon them the way they had abandoned me. When I found the will, it confirmed what I had already known. They never saw me as important. They never saw me as their priority. They gave everything to the daughter who had never been there, and nothing to the son who had done everything for them. And they did not even think they owed me an explanation. I put the will on the table and told them I had seen it. I asked why my name was not there. My father barely glanced at it before looking away. My mother did not react at all. They were not surprised. They were not concerned. I asked again. I told them I had taken care of them for years. I reminded them that my sister had done nothing for them, that she had left and never looked back. I asked why they had chosen her over me. My father finally spoke. His tone was even, as if he were stating a simple fact. They loved my sister more. I felt my stomach tighten. I asked how they could say that so easily, how they could ignore everything I had done for them. My mother finally looked up. She told me it was not about what I had done. It was about who she was. She was their daughter, their sweet girl. No matter how long she had been gone, no matter how much I had been there, she was the one they loved more. I asked if they had ever appreciated me, if they had ever thought about what I had sacrificed for them. My father shrugged. He said they were grateful, but that did not change how they felt. They had always loved her more, and they always would. I asked if they even cared about me at all. My mother sighed and said she did, but not in the same way. She said I was strong, independent, capable. I did not need them the way my sister did. My father added that I had never been like her, that I had always been distant, too serious, too responsible. My sister was different. She was bright, full of life, special to them in a way I never was. I could not believe what I was hearing. I had spent my entire life justifying their favoritism, convincing myself that they cared in their own way. But they had never even tried to hide the truth. They loved her more, and they did not care if I knew it. I told them this was unfair, that I had done everything for them, while she had done nothing, that I had given up years of my life for them, and they had repaid me by erasing me. My father shook his head. He said it was not about fairness. It was about love. And they loved her more. I asked them why. Why she was more important than me. What had I done wrong? My mother said I had done nothing wrong. It was just how things were. I waited, hoping for something more. An explanation, an apology, anything. But they had already said everything they needed to say. I walked out of the room. They did not stop me. Stood there, waiting for them to take it back, to say something that would make me believe I had meant something to them. They said nothing. I told them that if they truly believed my sister was the only one who mattered, then they should not expect anything from me anymore. If they had chosen her, then they should live with that choice. My father shrugged. My mother remained silent. I asked if they understood what that meant. That I would not be the one taking care of them anymore. That I would not be the one making sure they were okay. My father said I was making a big deal out of nothing. He said my sister was their daughter, their favorite, and that was never going to change. I told them I would not waste my time on people who did not care about me. If they wanted my sister to be the one they loved, then she could be the one to take care of them. My mother sighed, as if she was tired of the conversation. My father picked up the remote and turned the television back on. That was my answer. I walked out of the room and out of their house. I did not say goodbye. They did not stop me. I never went back. I never called. I never checked in to see how they were doing. They had made their choice. Now they would live with it. After I walked out, I did not look back. I did not wait for them to reach out. I knew they wouldn't. They had made it clear that I was not the child they cared about. At first, I expected to feel guilt. I thought I might question my decision, wonder if I had been too harsh. But I didn't. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I had been holding on to something that was never there. I had spent years trying to earn love from people who had already decided I was not worth it. I stopped calling. I stopped visiting. I did not check on them when they got sick. I did not ask how they were doing. I waited to see if my sister would finally step in now that she was the only one left. She didn't. She stayed where she was, living her life as if they did not exist. Just like before. I wondered if my parents ever regretted their decision. If they ever sat in that house, waiting for my sister to come back and realizing she never would. But I never asked. It was not my problem anymore. I built my own life. I focused on myself. Without the weight of their expectations, without the responsibility they had placed on me, I felt free. I did not need their love. I did not need their approval. They had made their choice. And for the first time in my life, I made mine.